Hello, I'm Jacqueline Tunstall, and today we will be discussing changing perspectives on diversity. As the text has explained to us in our readings in the PowerPoint presentation, there are currently three metaphors that identify um, our nation attempts to change diversity. The first period was the early 1960s to the 1970s during the Civil Rights Movement, and the perspective was on the government addressing inequalities. And the metaphor used for that was the melting pot, and the emphasis was assimilation. During the 1980s and the 1990s, the perspective changed to advantages of accepting differences recognized. And this metaphor is the salad. The emphasis was on differentiation and multiculturalism. The third one began in 2000 to the current state that we are in now. The perspective was different of opinions and insight on values. The metaphor for this particular area is called the smorgasbord. Its emphasis is on inclusion and integration. The question is posed, what would I do to change from the smorgasbord view or the smorgasbord metaphor? In my reading, I ran across a text by the name of Outliers. The author is Malcolm Gladwell, and in this book, he describes a principle of studying 10,000 hours to become an expert. He alludes to the fact that if you study something for 10,000 hours, you would become an expert in that particular matter that you're studying. And you will retain 70% of what you have learned in those 10,000 hours. So I would like to propose that the next metaphor would be outliers. And let's just look at history. From 1619 marks the time frame where the first slaves were brought to America. And from 1954 represents Brown versus the Board of Education. So if you look at the time frame between those two scenarios, slavery, which was 1619, and Board of Education, Brown versus the Board of Education, 1954, there's about 335 years of this nation practicing ill wills, stereotypes, colorism uh, against the minority and individuals of darker skin complexion. This adds up to about 2,094 10,000 hours of practice. So what this book is saying is that America has practiced 2,094 10,000 hours of racial discrimination, and they have become experts in it. So that means 70% of what has been learned and practiced is retained in our subconscious minds. And the only way to combat this is to purposely begin to practice in a manner to make change in the attempts of integration, inclusion, assimilation, all those aspects we need to begin to start to practice those in order to become experts of change, if that makes sense. We've only been trying to make change for about 62 years. So we have a lot of catching up to do.